This is the Lifestream Podcast, episode number 2 for June 30th, 2015. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lifestream Podcast. I am Mike Ficklin, also known as Vader SW1 on the forums, and joining me on this mythic quest into all things Final Fantasy are Flintlock.
Hi there.
Carly.
Hello.
And we were going to be joined by Lex as well, but he may end up showing up a little bit later into the show here. But for those that are listening for the first time, basically what this show is about is for an hour or so every few weeks, we will discuss all things Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy related. We'll hit upon some recent news and notes and delve into a different topic of discussion each episode. If you have a recommendation for something we should discuss, feel free to hit us up at lifestreampod@gmail.com or comment on the episode posts on the forums each week. And we've got a very packed episode for you, a very special episode, in fact. So without further ado, we'll move into the news and notes here so that we can get this thing rolling. TLS Podcast News. First piece of news here is we've got the Final Fantasy XV episode Duscae 2.0 release that happened back on June the 9th. In a recent interview with Famitsu, director Hajime Tabata listed the following updates that the fans will see, or maybe you have seen it if you played it already. He stated that guarding just before getting hit by an enemy attack will no longer consume MP, which was kind of annoying if you played the demo. You will also now be able to dodge roll, which can be shifted into from various actions, and it won't consume MP. Again, also helpful. There are more areas you can warp to. The shift/warp command has been updated. Co-op attacks have been added that come from ally suggestions. By simply moving the left stick during a consecutive attack, you can change your attack movement. Party AI has been approved, which was kind of a gripe amongst those that had played the original version of the episode Duscae demo. Attack power and the way MP is consumed has been adjusted. The camera can be moved down during combat. Individual action quests, which are suggested by party members, have been added. You can charge greatsword attacks by holding down the button. The camera turning speed and acceleration has been improved, and with that, the walk-on tracking has also been updated and target switching has been simplified. And lastly, because I have a terrible time pronouncing the monster's name, the Catoblepas, I guess, that are by the lake can now be fought. And for those that don't know what those are, they are the giant monsters that are hanging out at the lake. Originally, you could not interact with them, but now you can fight them, and apparently you can be smashed by them.
That would be very fun.
We saw those in the trailer.
Next piece of news here is going on to E3. Of course, we had our discussion about the Final Fantasy VII Remake on our mini episode from about a week or so ago, but there were also a lot of other exciting announcements that came out of that. Firstly is the new Kingdom Hearts 3 trailer, and I thought I'd let Carly talk a little bit about that since she's very excited about this.
That was only one or two happy moments that I had with Square Enix at E3. One being Final Fantasy and the other being Square Enix because their conference was boring. You would have fallen asleep. It was bad. But the trailer was actually really good, and the world that they showed was actually the world from Tangle, which a lot of people wanted to see in Kingdom Hearts because it's a really popular movie. The gameplay looked great. The trailer looked great. The plot, the little bit that the show looked great. Everything looked amazing. I want that game so much.
I just from the bits that they showed from the trailer here. I mean, it looks like the worlds are just massive. It looks like it's going to be a massive game.
Yes.
Do you think that they will incorporate Frozen in some fashion since Frozen's such a big deal?
Maybe, I don't know, depending, because the game has been in development for some time before Frozen came out. I'm guessing at best it's probably, if they don't have the world or they don't have really that many other characters from that world, like maybe you get an Easter egg from there. I'm not sure it's gonna be like something big, like from Tangle, where you get the world from Tangle. but it's probably gonna be something from Frozen because the movie was insanely popular. They would be crazy not to include
Yeah, I
something.
was gonna say, or possibly like some type of DLC for it, maybe.
Or maybe Elsa shows up for like 5 seconds or something like that. But they're probably gonna include something out of it.
Yeah,
Or Olaf.
I would certainly think that would be an automatic ticket to more sales by including Frozen.
That movie was just so popular that I feel like I've seen it, even though I haven't seen it. It's just all over the place.
You know,
It's gonna get to the point that it's gonna getting backlash because it was like a lot of popular things that eventually, once it starts to like die down a little bit, then you see the backlash for it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the movie, and my wife and I are both fairly big Disney fans. My wife more so than I, and I just wasn't overly impressed with it. I mean, it's your standard Disney musical, I guess. It was just meh to me.
I say that no, because like right at first you get a different plot from what you usually get. Like the whole true love thing is not like romantically. It's the bond between sisters, which is something they don't usually do. And you have that line that everyone has laughed at when you get Elsa telling out, I was like, you can't fall in love with a guy that you just met. It's like Disney thought that was hilarious and very like self-aware of what they usually do. So I like the plot. They probably shouldn't have, because pro-feminine doesn't necessarily have to be anti-men. And I think there was only like one actually male character was actually good. The rest of it were either evil or completely incompetent. And just because you have something that's pro-feminine doesn't have to be like basically anti-men.
I don't disagree with what you're saying there. And my problem with the film certainly was not the fact that it had a strong female cast at all. I don't know. It just didn't grip me the way that I guess it gripped most of the viewing public. Maybe it's just that I don't have an affinity for the pop music anymore. So,
but those like not just Tango Frozen. There's also Wreck-It Ralph, which I really hope Wreck-It was that would be a shame and a complete waste if Wreck-It Ralph is not in Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, it's a movie based on video games.
I've heard some speculation that Wreck-It Ralph was actually going to be involved.
It has to be. Come on, it's like video games. A movie about video games.
It's perfect. It's too perfect for them to miss out on that.
It would also complete a nice loop if they included Wreck-It Ralph, seeing as that actually had a Final Fantasy VII reference in it.
It lives.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, next piece of news from E3. Square kind of trolled us a little bit with this World of Final Fantasy announcement, which was kind of snuck in there along with that Final Fantasy VII Remake announcement. I don't think much is known about the game other than we saw some chibi-style character artwork, and I know it's going to be for mobile. So I know a large portion of the Final Fantasy fan base is getting sick and tired of these mobile games here. So not
basically no one cares about that game,
right?
Like, first of all, it came before the announcement for the remake, which I thought it was done on purpose just to troll people. Second of all, it's a mobile game with chibis. No one cares. Like, I think one of the reasons that you're not getting info is because no one's interested in getting info either.
Haven't they taken enough of our money on these mobile games? I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, how much money have they made off of Record Keeper? For sure, people have dropped a lot of money. Had to have.
Well, not my money, because I haven't
Speak for yourself.
Okay, well, maybe I'm in the minority on that then.
There might be something to appreciate in World of Final Fantasy, maybe for the older fans of the series. I've read that it's going to have an active time battle system again, which we haven't seen in the main series for a while.
You're right.
So maybe
Totally
it'll be fun.
forgot that they had announced that. Totally forgot that.
The thing is, it's like no one remembers, no one really cares about the game.
Yeah, the art direction kind of reminded me a little bit of what was in the Airborne Brigade mobile game, if anybody played that.
I think I downloaded that and then uninstalled it about half an hour later.
Another piece of news that came out of E3 is that the Final Fantasy VII port for the PS4 has been delayed. They did announce that it should be released on October the 16th. And apparently an iOS version of the game is going to be available in winter of 2015.
Okay, at this point, I don't think that game is actually real. I think that seriously. They just do that. Obviously, they trolled us with it back in December, and they did a fantastic job at it. But at this point, what does it matter anymore?
Well, it still matters because I guarantee you that they are going to do enough changes that the actual remake is going to be so different from the original experience that I think people are going to keep coming back to the original version.
You can play it on PS3, you can play it on PC. Why do you want to play it on PS4 if a remake is going to come up? You're going to have a PS4 Final Fantasy game eventually, an actual game. Why do you want to waste money on that?
I mean, I don't disagree with what you were saying. In fact, I was getting ready to say I already own like 4 different versions of Final Fantasy VII, so I'm not sure if it's necessary.
Right.
Until that game is on PSN, like actually says there, buy here, I'm not gonna believe that it's actually real. I'm still gonna think that game doesn't actually exist, and they're just pretending like it does because continuing that whole thing with the trolling.
That would really be dedication to the troll.
It's Square Enix.
Please be excited.
Some people are. When I shared this, the news of the PS4 ports release date on Facebook, then I thought no one was going to be interested, but actually some people were saying this will be a good chance to play through the original again and kind of refresh your memory before the remake comes out. Amazingly, there are still some people who don't own an existing version of Final Fantasy VII somehow.
I think I guess most of the excitement is for this specific port is that it's going to have like the Steam version trophies and stuff like that, which didn't come with like the PS3 port. So
those trophies are terrible, though.
They are. I'm not going to disagree with that. They definitely are. But
yes, but trophy whores are going to enjoy.
That's exactly what I was about to get to.
To me, it's a PC port. It's exactly the game that you can get on PC. You don't have to spend more money to just put a PC port on a PS4. I just don't see why people want to buy it.
They might still make a few changes to it. It might, despite the fact that it's going to have very few changes, it might still end up being the best version that we've got available.
Could be. I have my doubts. I mean, obviously the graphics are never going to change from what they are and stuff. So, I mean, the experience isn't going to change for what it originally was. I can't imagine that it's going to be so much better than PS1 or whatever.
What I'm saying is that there's 0 chance that I'm going to spend money on that.
I'd have to get a PS4 first.
Yeah, and probably a bad idea to buy a PS4 just to play a PC port of Final Fantasy VII.
Now,
I think I'll wait for the remake.
I'm crazy enough
you can
to do
get
that.
it when Uncharted comes out.
I can get what when it comes out?
Uncharted, and you can play Uncharted with us.
I'm not really into shooters.
It's a good one.
I'm sure it is. I really have nothing to say about this.
We'll move on.
I'll weigh you down.
Yeah, we'll move on to the next story, which was also announced at E3 that Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key will be released in North America. It's a mobile game. Apparently, its story will tie into Kingdom Hearts 3. Carly, our resident Kingdom Hearts fan, do you know much about this game at all?
No, because they lost me when they said mobile game. I don't care that it ties into Kingdom Hearts 3. There's 0 chance that I'm going to buy that crap.
I think just about the only mobile game that they could announce at this point that I would be happy about would be if they announced that they were going to release like the Before Crisis mobile game. I really want to play that. Turks, I really want to play the opportunity to play as the Turks.
I would play it if it comes like for the beta, then I'll play it, but I'm not playing that game on my cell phone. I think it's kind of stupid because it should be like more important than it is. When you put a game from your franchise on a cell phone, it says to me that it doesn't matter to anything at all in the story.
The next announcement from E3 then was that Square announced that there was going to be a new app called the Final Fantasy Portal app. and they didn't give any information whatsoever about it at all. Not even any kind of art direction that I'm aware of. My assumption, just based on the title of the game, is maybe it might have something to do with maybe like a collector's kind of thing where people can post their collections of Final Fantasy stuff, but I really have no idea.
Well, it's already come out in Japan, and I think you can play Triple Triad from Final Fantasy VIII on it at the moment. So maybe it's going to be some sort of mini game app. I'm not really sure.
It'd be interesting. Something that maybe they could throw on like the G-Bike game and stuff like that on.
Yeah, that would be really good. I don't think they will, seeing as that's quite a recent standalone app, but it would definitely be cool if they did that.
This announcement just was recently announced. Square announced that they are going to put out a new Final Fantasy Adventure / Legend of Mana game. I don't know if any of you have played any of the original Final Fantasy Adventure / Legend games on the original Game Boy, but I'm actually kind of excited about this. It almost sounds like they're actually going to do it in that throwback style too. So
then haven't even played Final Fantasy VII. So the answer is obviously no.
One step at a time.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I keep forgetting how much older I am than some of you folks. So.
Not necessarily that you're older, it's just that I'm not as much of a Final Fantasy fan than the rest of you.
And last note here on this is I do want to give a shout out to Tetsujin on the Lifestream forums here for his outstanding article titled On the Way to a Remake Retrospective. And it is a very insightful article that he's gathered all of the Final Fantasy VII Remake rumors that had floated around for many a year until Square finally stopped the troll 10 years later and announced that they were going to finally do this remake here. So that's an outstanding article. If you want to read it, just go to thelifestream.net and check out that article. It's right there on the front page.
I think the name he should have gone to was Hilarious in Hindsight.
I think the one he came up with was pretty clever. Actually, it might have been someone else's idea. But it really is an enjoyable read. And we've now kept up our 100% mentioning Tetsujin in the podcast record.
And so it was purely because we've mentioned him in the previous two podcasts that I had to find a way to mention him in this one. So
how are we going to do it the next time, though?
He better come up with another article.
He'll come up with something.
It's a good read, especially like I said, like reading the first 2 pages of the remake, the new remake thread. Like, just it's hilarious reading. Now that you know that it's real, reading obviously, this is fake. I have done it a few times, and every single time I just laugh my ass off.
Okay, so moving into the main topic of conversation this evening, we're going to talk about the results to Flintlock's Final Fantasy VII Remake survey. Really interested to hear about what's going into these results here. And joining us for this section here, better late than never, is Lex.
Hello there. I'm here.
So Flintlock, I'm really, really interested in hearing what about some of this stuff here. So what kind of reactions were you getting from folks on this?
Oh, we had the whole spectrum of reactions on this. The first thing I have to say is that I was really overwhelmed by the number of responses we got. It was over 200, and it's taken me a long time to read through all the responses. But people have been writing a lot. It's very obvious that they care about this game enormously, and they're very excited about the remake. And it's also pretty clear that no matter what Square decide to do with this remake, they're going to end up disappointing some fans because we've had opinions on both sides of the spectrum. Damn, I used the word spectrum twice. I hate doing that.
So what were some of the reactions like that you were getting?
Okay, we started off by asking people what their actual reaction was to the announcement. And as I said, it was generally one of massive excitement. There was a lot of swearing and a lot of capital letters in the written responses to the first section. Some people mentioned losing control of various bodily functions, which I probably wish they hadn't. People were talking about how they just couldn't believe it. In the days leading up to the announcement, there were rumors, and people just didn't want to believe it. 10 years of false hope will do that to you.
10 years
Exactly.
of being trolled.
So we asked people to rate on a scale of 1 to 7 how excited they were before and after the announcement, and it went up from 5.4 to 6.6 after the announcement. So 6.6 out of 7 excitement is pretty much as much excitement as you can expect.
That's pretty damn impressive, actually. So yeah, that's way up there on the upper end of the scale. It makes me curious. It makes me curious to see what kind of excitement people may have had when, like for instance, the announcement that they changed Versus 13 into Final
we should have
Fantasy
done a survey
15.
for that, I suppose, but too late now. So I'll read out a couple of comments that we got in this section. The question we asked was, what was your initial reaction to the news of the remake? One TLS forum member said, fuck, they will wreck it, and all my headcanon will be destroyed by the hyper detail of the new game. There'll be no scope left for the imagination.
Who is that? That sounds like it may be
That
Lick.
was Lick, well done.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's something that a fan fiction author would say.
Exactly.
Don't mess with the headcanon that I've been developing for 17 years, please.
That wasn't exactly very representative, though. This next one is a bit more representative. This was all in capitals, and it was by an anonymous responder. Oh my goodness, the holy glory day finally arrived. All I fear is pure joy and happiness. Finally, I can experience my most favorite game how it deserves it. That was a very nice reaction, wasn't it?
It really was.
And we had someone saying they were in the Navy, and they were on a ship with very slow internet, and they were extremely excited with the news, but they had to wait, a couple of weeks before they could get home and watch the trailer smoothly. And they said it was like waiting for Christmas.
That's awesome, man! What a great
story,
analogy.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And not to be the guy that rains on the parade here or anything like that, but I wonder, should we be tempering our expectations just
Maybe.
a little bit?
My expectations are nowhere. I don't think my expectations exist yet. We've not seen enough.
Yeah, I was saying on the previous episode of the pod that I'm really not expecting anything in particular. Just no matter what they do with the game, it's never going to take the original away from me. So I'm looking forward to it, and just pure excitement,
Understood.
really.
Yep, absolutely.
And we had some comments talking about, revisiting childhood, and let's see, people being nervous, people squealing, people shaking, hyperventilating. Yeah, very, very nice to hear.
It kind of
Quite similar to my reaction, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say, Lex. In fact, your profanity laced reaction might be my favorite one of all.
I loved my reaction. Personally, I'm still watching reaction videos now, and still feeling the excitement all the time. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Probably, I request that we link this in the article when this podcast is posted. But the one where the guy cries.
I don't think I've seen that one yet.
He just bursts
I
into
haven't
tears.
seen that one either.
It's in the fan reaction thread. It's really, really worth your time watching. It's because it's very genuine, very, very genuine.
Okay, so moving on then. So had some questions about setting and plot. Flint, what did we get out of that?
Well, we asked people what would they most like to see changed and what they most worried about being changed, and the responses ranged from change nothing to keep Eris alive. I mean, seriously, that's changing the entire game.
Stupid.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that one was entirely serious. The bulk of the responses were somewhere in the middle, of course. Most people are happy with things being added, but they're worried about things being removed. Quite natural, I suppose. Let's see. We asked people, how important is it to you that the original story remains unchanged in the remake? And it was about 6 out of 7 people were saying that it should remain unchanged. Then about 5 out of 7 were saying that we should include elements from the wider compilation of Final Fantasy VII, and that actually is quite a maybe slightly surprisingly high number.
I'm surprised by that.
Really surprised. Yes.
I think maybe on TLS we have quite a selection of people who are not that enthralled with the compilation, whereas people who just visit our site or see us on Facebook or whatever are more casual fans and are more willing to see new elements added.
I wouldn't mind some new elements, but I find it surprising that a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing new elements. I mean, I think I would be equally happy if they added nothing.
You gotta remember that a lot of people came into the Final Fantasy VII through the compilation to stuff that happened later.
Oh yeah, there's that as well. Something else I don't understand. I think if I'd encountered Advent Children, I'd be like, "What is this? No, I can't break into this. No way. It makes no sense."
So some of the comments that I liked, one of them was from Octo on our forums, who said that the remake should just iron out plot consistencies and omissions from the original game, like saying, quote, death. I think that's quite a bone of contention with people on TLS who seem to be massive Turks fans.
Yes.
Then
That's a good point, actually. That's something I hadn't thought about.
yeah, I mean,
The fact that
we wouldn't even have to
Yeah,
change
it's
the
like-
story, really. Just kind of make it a little bit more obvious that he doesn't actually
well,
die.
the thing is, Sung doesn't die though. Like, the very last line is "I am still alive." So it's just a lot of people miss it because they don't go over and speak to him before they go into the temple. So, but Rufus is one that they'll probably have to like add a bit of content to, because I thought it was fairly obvious that he died, and that was I mean, you can't really say it was a retcon because they never showed you like a dead body, and it was never really confirmed, you know.
It was quite disappointing for me to see him come back in Advent Children.
Yeah, I felt like it was a retcon.
Completely agree, Lex.
Okay, one of my favourite comments, probably in the whole survey, was from an anonymous responder who said that they'd like to see the developers go back to the original series Bible and look at the material they had to cut from the game due to time and budget, etc. So stuff like Tifa learning her ultimate limit break from Zangan in person, Red 13 clones, etc. Then decide if they want to see that material added in some form or another. I think that would be really exciting.
Yeah, that'd be
an
yeah,
excellent
that's a really awesome idea. Yeah.
Johnny had the side character Johnny, I'm sure we all know who he is, had extra scenes and dialogue that were cut from the original game as well, so it'd be interesting to see a bit more about his character. But I would particularly like to see, like, you know, Red 13's other clansmen or women,
Yeah.
as is the case. That's something that was kind of an addition in the compilation, but the original game really kind of made out to be he was the only one of his species alive, even though that was never really said. And, you know, it is original game canon that he has children at the very end, so I would like to see maybe a little Easter egg, what female Red 13 running around somewhere. Maybe we encounter her.
Not a bad idea. So then we had people talking about more details for Midgar, for example. Some extra information on the background story, like the Wutai War. People talk about Loveless and mini games, Deep Ground. So lots of things
There are
from
some comments
compilation
about-
coming up.
There's some comments about additional stuff on the upper plate as well, wasn't there? Like some people were asking for additional quests on the upper plate because we never go there really in the original game. Like we're there at the bombing missions, but other than that, you don't see much of it.
That's right, and we may have seen some of it in the trailer. I'm not really sure. One thing I noticed is that a lot of people really hate Genesis, and they're very worried about him being included in the remake. Now, considering the sponders could have written about literally any part of the plot or setting in this section, I think it's quite telling that many of them wrote about nothing but Genesis. It seems to be quite a divisive character.
That's kind of counterproductive to the percentage of people that actually wanted to see compilation pieces added into the game here. So that's very
I
interesting.
suppose it's
I think people don't mind additional compilation stuff as long as it's not Genesis.
It's not about
Please.
everyone, bro. I would like compilation stuff as long as it's not Genesis. Like, please, no. A billion times no.
I've been
don't
thinking
want-
about this a lot, and I don't think I despise Genesis also, right? But I don't think I would hate them so much if it wasn't for the stupid poetry, the constant gift of the goddess crap. He never shuts up about it, and it's very grating. Like, very, very, very grating. He's a dumb boss. I'm sorry, he really is. And a crap villain. Do you guys like Genesis?
No.
Hell no.
In no way,
No, not
shape,
really.
or form.
So TLS member Cold Spirit gave quite a representative comment on this topic. He said, "Please don't integrate Genesis into the Nibelheim incident when Cloud is recalling the events within the live stream. I feel that adding Genesis would make that entire sequence sloppy, as it should only focus on Cloud's insecurities and hatred towards Sephiroth."
Absolutely agree.
Couldn't agree more. Yep. Could not agree more.
And people were saying that they're worried about the comic relief being downplayed. Although we have had some assurances that Cloud will appear in womanly attire and Barrett and Red 13 will still get their sailor uniforms and stuff. One person said, "This man Arsik cannot be changed." Repeat, cannot.
Okay, that has to be changed. There's no way that would work on dialogue. What I think a happy medium would be is you have a normal conversation, no one speaking ridiculously English that doesn't actually work. But when you click on the character, the guy that is sick, not are sick, instead of a name, on top of his name, you get "this guy are sick."
I see, so it's like a little Easter egg for people who played the original.
Yeah.
I think it would be cool for them to include some kind of Easter egg, but I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, the way people are saying, so many people have said, please don't change this guy are sick, and that's stupid because, newsflash, it was only ever this guy are sick in the original PlayStation version. Every other version that has been released since then has removed it. It doesn't include the PSN release because that is just a straight, that's a straight emulation of the original PlayStation game. But the PC release in 1998 had this guy is sick, among other corrections. The PC releases on Steam and the Square Enix Online Store have all had this guy is sick. The release that's coming out in iOS, supposedly at the end of this summer, and for the PS4 at the end of the year, are going to have this guy is sick because those are ports of the PC release. So they're probably gonna. They may even ignore that it exists, to be honest. It depends on who the localization department are.
Livestream member Teo said she was worried about anything that made the Final Fantasy VII world what it is being changed. And she mentioned the mix of the moments of horror and moments of pure wackiness, which I think it was a really good description of the game.
It's really going to be bizarre, isn't it?
Mm.
If done right, it's going to be bizarre, I think.
Okay, this out of the wacky stuff, I don't want the world market to be changed. In fact, if it has to be like one person, like you can't pick from who's gonna get picked by Don Cornell. I want it to be Cloud because that's the funniest thing ever.
Yeah, I feel better about that particular sequence since they've pretty much confirmed that Cloud will be in the dress. But like for me, like some of the wacky moments I just like to see kept in would be like seeing Red 13 in the sailor uniform. I think that's going to be hysterical.
Yeah, I think people are worrying a little bit too much about the lighter moments being lost. We haven't had like a straight confirmation that the cross-dressing scene is going to be included. It was when Tetsuya Nomura was asked in an interview whether or not that people, the exact wording from the interviewer was something like, people are worried that scene is going to be removed. And Tetsuya Nomura said, please look forward to it, in a kind of joking manner. So it's kind of a confirmation. And in addition, in another interview, he said the game wouldn't be Final Fantasy VII without the lighter moments. So I think people are worrying a little bit too much about those moments not being included. I, however, am worried about the darker moments. Particularly, like, I'm trying to think of a specific example right now, but
Cloud hitting
yeah,
Aerith.
that's been mentioned a lot. How they're going to handle Aerith's death scene.
I would assume because you can't actually show it the way it's showed because at that time it was pixelated. But I'm assuming the camera will just pan away when the sword
Mhm.
hits her stomach because
I
well
thought that
then
also.
because then you had to put up the rating to M.
Well, I don't think that that's necessarily something that would have to be out of the question, would it?
What are
There are a lot of
sorry
very
for the
successful
sidetrack?
games.
Sorry for the sidetrack here, but what are the American ratings? Because in the UK they can use film ratings or they can use ESRB.
Here is E, rated E for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Teen, which
Yep.
is, and then you got M for mature, which is 17 and older.
So there are three, because in the UK there's U, which is universal, PG, which is parental guidance. Those are for like any age. There's 12A, which is, well, actually 12A is the new PG, which is you need to be 12 or with adult supervision, 15. And games that are 15s usually have a bit of violence, a bit of blood, a bit of swearing, maybe some sexual content. And then there's 18, which is like the equivalent of M. So I'm thinking, would T be the equivalent of 15? Couldn't it get away with showing like the sword going through her chest with a bit of blood with a teen rating? Or would it have to be mature?
I think so. I think they could get away with that. I mean, you don't have to go all out horror movie gore with it or anything like that.
It really
You could
really
just-
depends, because sometimes there's been some stuff going with the moral guardians and that stuff that you look at it and it's like that shouldn't be a problem, and then you see another game with something worse because of maybe the body part that we're speaking of, then that is allowed. It's messed up. You know how the moral guardians work.
Well, Mass Effect is a 15.
Here's an M.
Really?
Yes. Mass Effect, Dragon Age, there are M.
Well, Dragon Age is
Yeah.
an 18, which would be the equivalent of M, but Mass Effect is 15.
Here's
Yeah, I
straight up.
think-
Remember that it has like the first one. It has the naked backside. That's not allowed for teenagers or children because
Yeah, it
they
was-
definitely
yeah.
don't know where to find that stuff online.
It's a bizarre combination of things that would transition a game from being teen to M. It could be a combination of anything of too much foul language and violence to just straight up too much foul
And
language.
Final Fantasy
It's-
VII has
it's very
no
bizarre.
foul language at all.
Well, if they keep some of Barrett's dialogue in, it will. So
I wanted to keep it because it's not the same without him and Sid swearing all the time.
I think they're going to. I
Agreed.
think the danger zone is if they go halfway in either direction, because they can't, like. I don't know how they're going to convey their characters without the swearing, because the swearing was such an important part of Sid's character. Because you saw those symbols and you were like, "Oh, Barrett, swears some," and then you meet Sid and it's like every single sentence. It's like. So I think it's important. I don't know.
all right. So moving on to the next section. Then here, I know you asked some questions about gameplay. What did we get out of that?
Well, the first thing we asked was whether people wanted a turn-based battle system or something more action-oriented, and this was a pretty divisive one. The median response was 3 out of 7, so a slight preference for turn-based, but the mode, which is the most frequently given response, was 1 out of 7, so a lot of people actually felt very strongly about this, that they wanted the turn-based system to remain.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, one comment about that was, I think for this day and age, either a new version of the turn-based system would have to be incorporated, or something more action-oriented, like Final Fantasy 15 or Kingdom Hearts. I don't mind the original gameplay, but unfortunately I know people who get frustrated very easily by random encounters, and the turn-based system may lose its charm quickly for them and may seem limiting. I know this is something we've been discussing on TLS as well in the last couple of days on the forum. I think most of us want a turn-based system as well, but it might be that Square feel that they can widen the appeal of the game by making it more action-based game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what
For
about
the-
something like the Final Fantasy 13 turn-based system?
Uh,
That does feel more action-oriented.
Some comments mentioned that very system. 12, 13, and 15 came up in the answers quite a lot. And 10 too, actually. A lot of people like that system.
For the record, I hate random encounters. Absolutely hate them.
you like the wrong series then?
Well, again, I don't play that many of the other games, and the games that I do have finished, the first one I finished was 12, which obviously doesn't have that.
But I don't think they're going to do turn-based. That's just my opinion. I would prefer it if they did, but
They should go
even
with action.
I think there were actually a lot of complaints about 13's original system, even though it is a good battle system.
I was gonna say that was one of the highlights of the game. I felt like.
And I agree, and I hate 13. That was actually one of the things that I did not dislike about that game.
I read a lot of people complained about the auto battle feature, as it can be called, because you can just mash X.
People always find a reason to be unhappy. No making everyone happy.
It's the internet.
So the other questions in this section, people didn't have such strong opinions. We asked about things like open world, random encounters, and the difficulty level, and people were pretty much evenly divided. People were happy with things being more or less how they were in the original. I was a bit surprised.
Yes,
I think people.
It's interesting. The random encounters thing is interesting for sure.
I think the open world thing may have surprised me a little bit. I mean, I would really love to see the game have an open world setting. I'm not really sure how it would work with the world map.
I can't imagine them doing world map kind of thing with doing a game, remaking this game and for current platforms. I would see it more like being done in Final Fantasy 15 open world style. I mean, maybe not as massive Final Fantasy 15 world, but I definitely see it more likely heading to an open world feel.
The trouble is, when you do open world, how do you deal with an airship? Because Final Fantasy 15 may or may not have an airship. We don't know.
Final Fantasy 12 was more or less open world, and they had airships, did they
not? It's not a real airship, though.
It's like a menu airship in Final
It's a
Fantasy
menu.
12.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I guess that's kind of my point. I mean, it wouldn't be obviously a real airship. It would be based in a menu system, which sucks. But
wasn't someone saying either on the forum or in a previous podcast that there's some game that they played where there's like a sort of transition screen between the ground and flying?
That was me. It's, Final Fantasy Typo HD does it.
Right, there you go.
Does a good world map. On the ground, between sections, there's a transition screen. So if you're in like the starting region and then you go to like the next region where the next town is, there's a loading screen because the areas are quite large. When you are in an airship, it flies so far above the ground that it obviously doesn't have to render everything in that great detail, but it still looks like, a world map. And there are no loading screens between sections. So it basically loads when you land, rather than the older style where you would just land in the world map. Or the newer style where there just is no, or it would load between sections, but it doesn't do that. It's a whole world map when you're in the airship, but it only loads when you land, so it'll load the region that you're going to be landing in. And I think it works incredibly well. That makes sense. So that would make sense to me if they did something like that.
I think I'd be quite happy to see something like that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I totally agree. That system makes total sense.
So one person said that they'd like to see a change to the materia system because they didn't get enough out of it when they first played the game. They said that skills like poison, protect, and death very rarely worked when I wanted them to, and there really wasn't any need to use anything in the main story other than sword strikes and healing. It's a deep battle system, and it would be nice for the game to nudge players in how to use materia in the fullest way possible. What do you think of that?
I quite like the sound of that, to be honest. It's true. I mean, as much as people complain about mash X to win in Final Fantasy 13, it's the same in pretty much 7. You can hold in circle or X if you change your controller, and just have attack, and kill everything. So, I mean, I enjoy the materia system for what it is. I wouldn't mind a one-to-one change, but we know the battle system's going to change, so it'll be interesting to see how they implement the materia system, and I wouldn't mind if they maybe they could make some bosses give them really high defense against physical attacks or something, to force you to use materia more often, or come up with some interesting combinations.
I don't necessarily think that they should make the game more difficult or gear a game to make you have to strategize to use certain materia to beat certain characters. I mean, if a player wants to, like me, wants to go ahead and just straight up do physical attacks to get through the game, then it should be allowed to be done that way. I mean, I don't think it's necessary to force people to have to use debuffs and buffs and shit to get through the game. I mean, that I find that kind of highly annoying.
I kind of agree. I think the point the commenter made about how certain kinds of materia like poison weren't all that useful. I mean, they can be very useful in some cases, like materia keeper or whoever else. But I think that's a good point that they could give kind of more of a point to these materias that no one uses.
Yeah, I mean, basically what I was saying was I don't mind if they want to maybe alter the way that or whatever system they're using to determine whether or not a debuff works, or something like poison or death, or maybe death blow, how often it actually connects and works. I don't mind if they want to adjust that, tweak that a little bit for those that do want to use those kinds of things to help them out in a fight. But I just don't want them to make a boss extremely difficult to take down just using physical attacks because they want you to use a debuff or some kind of special magic attack.
Mm-hmm. Valid.
Kind of reminds me of Record Keeper a little bit when you put it that way.
Lol.
Yes. Hence one of my biggest gripes with Record Keeper.
Just before we move on, I was going to say that my opinion on the difficulty has evolved a little bit since the remake announcement, because my first thought was, I hope it's more difficult. I find the original to be, well, a bit dull, I suppose, in that there's only really 4 interesting boss battles in the whole game. But then the engineer on our Lifestream forums said that because it's an easy game, it gives people the flexibility to play it in different ways. And I realized that, yeah, I mean, I'm like probably the person on our forum who does the most of these different challenges with Final Fantasy VII, you know, single character or no materia or low level or whatever. So I kind of agree. Like, if it is the same difficulty as it was before, then so be it. I'll enjoy it again.
The thing to note as well with that is the people who complain about it being too easy are people that have played the game 1,000 times.
Yeah.
And we know all the tips and tricks, and we know, I mean, if you cast your mind back to the very first time you played FF7, I didn't find it easy. There are bosses that caught me out. I died against Gene Attack like upwards of 20 times, and you can kill him with one item. So these are the kinds of things that when you know it's easy, but when you don't, maybe not so much.
I wonder if it will be possible for them to have a difficulty level system in the game, or make it maybe more difficult than New Game Plus.
Well, they do have difficulty systems in place in 13.2 and Lightning Returns, and it pretty much just makes the enemies stronger.
Yeah, so we could see it again, maybe.
Yeah.
Going back to what we were saying about how the combat and the materia system are intertwined, one person said that, I don't mind if it's turn-based or action-based, but I don't think it's possible to have a hack and slash game and still have the flexibility of the materia system at the same time. How do you pick a move with a character that's equipped with Master Magic, Master Summon, and Master Command without a menu? This might diminish the tactical side of the gameplay.
I've got an answer for you. You could assign the directional pad on the controller to be able to pop up a brief menu that you could then select whatever spell you had equipped on a given character and stuff, and you could select that.
Would this pause the battle?
Or no. You would just do it on the fly, similar to how things would work with like I guess like Resident Evil or something like that, where you're equipping a different weapon. See what I'm saying? You don't actually have to pause the game to go through. You actually do it on the fly. Hitting that arrow key actually presents a quick menu that you can select whatever spell you want, and then able to use that spell.
I was thinking more that if characters had certain materia equipped, they would have access to those abilities, and then you could map those abilities to button inputs.
Yep, that's exactly what I was getting ready to say.
Then you'd be limited to, I don't know, 8 or so commands.
Yep, because they'll be able to use the D-pad as well as, maybe the D-pad would be better for menuing, but if they're going full action with it, they could use, if there's going to be no menu in battle, for example, other than, stats and stuff, they could use the D-pad and the 4 buttons, and maybe some of the back buttons as well for moves during battle, and that gives you what, 4, 3, 12.
You say 4, 3, 12?
4 multiplied by 3. It was quick juvenile maths.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. There's plausible solutions for that. Yeah, I don't think that's something that's going to cause problems necessarily.
I just don't. I'm not of the opinion that you actually need access to every single thing. And like, if you've got a character equipped with Master Magic, Master Summon, and Master Command, and you're about to go into battle, you know what abilities you're going to want to use generally. So you don't really need. I mean, if you've got Fire 3, do you need Fire 1 and Fire 2 kind of thing?
Nope. You're making a great point about that. Maybe as you level up the materia, it disables your use of the older magics.
Maybe,
if
yeah.
you will.
Maybe.
Well, I've always stuck with using Cure 1 even when I've had Cure 2 and 3, just because it's more MP efficient when you're outside of a battle.
Not a bad strategy.
Mm.
But again, there may be an extra menu where you can like enable, if you've say got the Cure materia equipped and it has Cure 1, Cure 2, Region, Cure 3, where you can enable 1 or 2 of the spells that come from that materia for use in battle, rather than having access to all 4 of them.
Yeah, I can see something like that working. I'm visualizing it in my head.
What about having something similar to the Final Fantasy XII battle system where you can set up what essentially macros for certain situations?
I wouldn't mind to see something similar to 12 system in that when you open the battle menu it pauses.
You can choose to make it pause, yeah.
You can choose to make it pause, yeah. That wouldn't bother me because that would give you the full access to all of the menus.
Right.
But I think people might take exception to that purely because it's it's physically pausing the battle. And some people don't like to play like that because it's quite staggered. So I'm not sure about that one. I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind, to be honest, if they just did an extension of the Gambit system.
So moving on then, we also asked some questions about the game graphics and the audio presentation. What did we find out about that?
So we asked people if they'd rather have their character and location designs based on the original game or the wider compilation, and there was a slight preference for the original game, but wasn't really dramatic. And we asked about the camera, and overwhelmingly people wanted a user-controllable camera, something like Final Fantasy XII, so I imagine that has full rotation around the character.
Because what is the point in having all that beautiful environment if you can't look around it yourself? Am I right?
I completely agree, yeah.
Damn right. Damn right.
People were very likely to use a voice selection, a language selection feature if there's one of those available, so they can have the Japanese voice acting, for example, which I also completely agree with. And then finally we got into the soundtrack, and people were fairly strongly in favour of the original soundtrack. The most common response to that question was, don't touch it, just keep the original. Orchestrate it if you want to, but don't, remix it.
I couldn't agree more. That soundtrack is beautiful, gorgeous the way it is. It needs no changes. It needs no additions. I mean, it may need some lengthenings here and there, depending on how they decide to do certain sections of the game and stuff, but otherwise, it needs no changing.
Yes,
okay.
Agreed.
So we asked people, which parts of the updated graphics and audio are you looking forward to the most? One comment was, I'm really looking forward to hearing a fully orchestrated version of the soundtrack on the whole. Orchestra series such as Final Symphony and Distant Worlds have given a taste of what a fully orchestrated Final Fantasy VII soundtrack would be like. Uematsu's score is perfect and should not be altered aside from becoming fully orchestrated.
Agree.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ite, or Ite, Mr. Ite, I suppose he is, from the Lifestream forums, said that ambient noise will change this game for the better. That was an interesting comment because I think he's got an acting background or drama or something. Interesting that he thought of that. I'm looking forward to it as well. The characters are probably going to talk to each other a lot more than they did in the original game, and that should be great.
Very excited about ambient conversations. And one other thing is, one thing I thought of when ambient noise was mentioned was the City of the Ancients, the Shell City, or Forgotten Capital. I get those confused. So when you first get there and how eerily silent it's going to be.
Maybe you could include some ambient noise like dripping water or something like that.
I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that. And I can already hear the sound of Tetsuya Nomura's 20 belts on each character clanking through all these quiet locations in Final Fantasy VII.
Well, his 7 character designs are relatively tame, so if he doesn't touch them too much, we shouldn't hear too much clanking around. Maybe just a boot stomp, because they've all got massive boots. Every one of them.
One person said they're looking forward to HD character models and voice acting, because if done right, it can add so much to the game. Seeing the expressions on the faces of the characters and hearing them express their emotions can be amazing and really improve over the original if done right. They also suggest bringing in a Hollywood script writer to clean up the dialogue, but I'm not sure I agree with that.
I disagree strongly with that. Oh my god, no.
Asking for trouble.
It really is.
As for what they were worried about being changed, a lot of people mentioned Cloud's design, how they wanted it to stick to the original and not be sort of, well, the words that came up were kind of emo and mopey from Advent Children or Dissidia. People worried about the game being sanitized, I suppose losing things like Trail of Blood and, Midgar Zolam on a spike.
I wasn't concerned about that until Lex brought up the game rating system.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So now I am concerned about it. There are iconic moments in this game that certainly, with high definition graphics, I could see causing problems with the powers that be with the rating systems and stuff. And God, I would hate to see iconic scenes like the Midgar Zolam and the Trail of Blood in the Shinra building removed just for the sake of trying to keep it rated T.
Oh, it's a country thing as well. I mean, you've got America to blame for that, because in Japan...
I never said we were perfect, Lex. I never said we were perfect.
In Japan, the rating system, a bit of blood would not get that like an adult rating in Japan. Do you know what I mean? In the UK, it would probably get it a 15, which would be acceptable because it's the equivalent of teen. But it's the US that takes issue with these things, and they're like, no, it's mature, adults only. It's like, why?
You think a country that loves guns so much would be a little more tolerant of blood.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Some people were pretty much willing to give Square carte blanche when it comes to the remake in terms of graphics and audio. One person just said they're not worried about anything being changed because if you're going to remake it, remake it.
Oh, that's a good comment.
So, last part of that then is I know you asked some final questions about how they were going to enjoy the game and such. So, what were some of the responses you got out of that?
In the final section, we started off by asking about the game script and if people would like to see it retranslated. And it was pretty overwhelmingly in favor of the game script being retranslated, even though we had that earlier comment about someone being wedded to this guy are sick. It seems that most people would like a more coherent script. And we also...
I'm actually
carry on.
surprised at some of these percentages here. Not more of them weren't just completely in favor of retranslating the script. I'm just baffled by that.
Well, it needs a retranslation. It's terrible. There's so many mistakes, and so much is lost in the English translation. You lose the reveal that Kate Sith is Reeve. Well, you don't lose that reveal itself, but you lose how it's revealed. And the way the characters figure it out is that Reeve's accent is different when he's pretending to be Kate Sith.
Which was completely lost on me, believe it or not, until I read the article about the retranslation project, which we won't get into.
Yeah, that's lost in the original game. So much else is lost as well. Things are a bit clearer in the Japanese version. I mean, the story's still convoluted as hell, but because of the translation, things were muddied where there was already quite a lot of mud. So it badly needs a retranslation, and it'll be interesting to see what they do with it.
Okay. Then we asked people if they'd be interested in downloadable content, DLC that goes beyond the original game. And as someone who has probably never bought DLC in my life, I was quite surprised that 1/3 of responders were completely in favor of DLC in this case, and the average was also in favor of it.
Okay.
I feel some irony in this response here, with 1/3 of the people being interested in that, given the sheer amount of people that are upset with Square with their mobile pay to play games. It's almost the exact same thing here, except you're just doing it on a platform like a PS4 or an Xbox One.
That's not true.
You know,
I disagree. DLC
you know,
can
with
be a very, very good thing if it's done right. And there's all sorts of bullshit that makes people hate DLC. One of those is like day one
day
on
one,
disc DLC. That's bullshit. If it's on the disc, you shouldn't have to pay extra for it. But in the case, BioWare have done that, okay? But in the case of BioWare, if you look at the Mass Effect games, they tell a big, massive story. And then they supplement it with additional content that they make after the game is released. If they feel that a certain area needs to be expanded upon, or there's certain things that they shouldn't do that they have done, but the DLC that they give is, for example, about $6.99 in the UK, which is not a lot of money, and it has about 8 hours of additional content. I know I wrote very interested for DLC for FF7, and the reason for that is because when they remake this game, they're not going to leave parts of it out and then have you download it as DLC in the future. If they did do that, it would be absolute bullshit and people would riot. I know that when we get a remake, it's going to be a proper full remake of the game, and any DLC that they do will be like adding additional story plot points or just general additional content, and I'd be interested to see that, and I would definitely buy it.
$39.99 for a season pass to include shoehorning Genesis into everything.
Okay, the DLC could be like for those people that want more compilation stuff. That would be a good way to insert that in the game, not be in the DLC content.
My thinking when I read that question was actually, this was something I thought about right after the remake was announced, before I even looked at this survey, and it's if they're going to do DLC, because when I was first watching that trailer, I thought, is this finally, an end to the compilation? I didn't think it was a remake. I was fooled by the first 20 seconds of the trailer into thinking it was something else compilation related that was set in the future, because I didn't recognise Midgar right away. And so after I realised it was a remake, I thought, well, do you think they're going to actually finish the compilation? Because the compilation did end in a cliffhanger, and don't get me wrong, I would take a remake over another compilation game any day of the week for sure, and I'm really happy that it is a remake. But when they remake this game and they finish it, a lot of thought is going to have to go into how they end it, now that we know there's something that happens after the original ending. And particularly, I thought if they wanted to end the compilation without bringing out another game, they could release DLC for this game that is like a conclusion to the compilation and call it like episode compilation end or some crap like that.
That'd be awesome. I mean, and by the same token, perhaps retcon some of the crap that we don't like. So
That's always going to be subjective, though. How much do you have to pay not to get Genesis, by the way?
That might be the $99.99 collector's edition.
Okay.
They could do like a Genesis removal mod DLC.
Well, next we asked people how likely they would be to buy the remake on the 3 most likely platforms, which are PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. Obviously, we don't know that it's coming to Xbox One or PC, but they mentioned multiple consoles, so I'm guessing Xbox One, and is probably going to get a PC port at some point. So PlayStation 4 was the overwhelming winner in this. 73% of people said that they would be very likely to buy it on PlayStation 4. And 77% of people said they were very unlikely to buy it on Xbox One, which I think is probably explained by the sample selection for this survey, because we were obviously asking people who are already Final Fantasy fans, and Final Fantasy does have some fairly long-running association with PlayStation. So people are more likely to already have this console, for example.
Indeed.
As for PC, it was a much more even split. 34% said they were very likely, 23% that it was possible, 27% said very unlikely, and the rest of it was somewhere in between. So pretty even. Personally, I think I'd be most likely to get it on PC if it came out around the same time as PlayStation 4, but we already know it's going to be a timed exclusive, so I guess I'm getting a PS4.
Haha.
You know, I'm just one of those weirdos that will just go out and buy the new consoles shortly after they come out here, just because I know that there's going to be a new Final Fantasy and that it's going to be the only way I'm going to be able to play it is by buying the new console. So I might as well just get it out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand that. And I don't know, I've got a fairly powerful PC now, so I have a choice. But I would play it on PS4 for sure. If they were releasing on the same day, I would get the PS4 version, even if the PC version was like 20 quid cheaper. And I just have this feeling that playing Final Fantasy VII on something that is not a PlayStation is sacrilegious somehow. I just don't like the idea of that at all.
Which is really strange, because of all the people on the live stream, you're the one who's most into the PC mod community.
Yeah, purely because you can mod it. That's the only reason. But a brand new game, the difference is like, I mean, it might be slightly. Maybe you'll get 60 frames per second on PC, where you get 30 on the PS4, and that'll probably prompt me to buy the PC version in the future. So I will probably likely get both versions. But when I play through Final Fantasy VII now, I prefer to have all the mods for sure. So I will play it on PC, but I've still got it on my Vita, I've still got it on my PSP, still got it on the PS3, still got my original copy. So I do prefer to play it on PlayStation. The thing I hate most about the PC version of Final Fantasy VII is that there's no mod to change button inputs. So when the game is telling you to press a button, it says press B1 or press like J2 or whatever, and it's done. I'm sorry, tell me to press square, tell me to press circle. I don't understand this button system you have, PC.
I just want to say that if you have only a fairly powerful PC, then what the hell is a really powerful PC? Because I think you've got an absolute monster.
Okay, I've got a monster of a PC. I was being modest, Flynn. My poor little PC is, it's a demure thing. It doesn't like too much praise. It'll gain sentience and attack me.
All right, we've come to the last question. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask you if you had anything else on that, actually.
Well, we haven't read any comments from this section, and I haven't actually had time to pick out some of my favourites, so I don't know if any of you want to quickly skim through and just randomly pick one.
Why don't we do one each? Right, I'll do roulette. I'm scrolling up and down in the box. Click.
Okay.
I would love for the remake
should we introduce you? Like, just, I don't know, maybe Vader should say, like, what other comments were there or something, I don't know.
I mean, we could just roll with it, man. It's
all right. We'll figure something out.
Just roll with it
in the edit.
I think what? So someone said, "Do you have any other thoughts about the remake?" was the question, and someone responded, and I can't see the names, so I'm just reading this out. I would love for the remake to include the core story from the original game, but to also have a little bit of tie-in with the other games. But perhaps mild mentionings at most for these things like Deep Ground and Genesis. I love ACC and CC's style, so if the game became a bit moodier and the music receives a slight change to that similar to Advent Children and Crisis Core, I'd be okay with that. Gameplay, combat-wise, I'd love an update, but nothing over the top. FF13 system sucked. FF15 style... FF15 style minus weapon swapping mechanics or an updated version of 7's combat would be great.
Wow, that was an essay, wasn't it? We had lots of really long answers for these questions. I just told people to write whatever they wanted, and they didn't hold back at all. By the way, we're going to publish all these responses on the live stream front page with the names removed.
Good idea.
So you can see what people have been saying.
I like this one. I hope people are open to change and not have their nostalgia glasses on. Turn-based in IMO is a slight bit outdated, and not making at least a mixture of both action and turn-based would be a massive waste of technology and a waste of potential. It shouldn't just be the exact same game, just better graphics. It should be a fresh yet familiar experience.
Oh, I like that too.
Yeah, that's a good one. And just for the sake of balance, I'll read one that says, I think that Square Enix will ruin the game because they are very likely to change the story, change the gameplay, and even the audio, which I think is very good in the original game.
Fair. That's absolutely fair. I mean, Square Enix have a really good track record with remakes.
They do, usually because they outsource them.
I'm sure it was Force. Yeah, it was Force that said that. But I mean, technically, this game is outsourced. It's just being directed by Nomura, which is something I'm incredibly worried about. I'm sorry, I'm terrified. Nomura directing. Hello. But yeah, I think they're gonna. I don't know. There's no way to know what it's going to be like until we've got it in our hands, or we see some gameplay footage, or some trailers, or whatever. So everybody brace yourselves for winter, I guess.
Okay, well, any other final remarks on the survey here?
No, that more or less wraps it up. So just say thank you again to everyone who responded. It's been really good fun reading through these answers.
And thanks to you, Flint, for doing the survey, because it's cool to read everyone's responses.
Oh, no problem at all.
Yes. So last here, I was going to go over some feedback from the previous episodes here, but we've been running kind of long here, so I think I will hold back on going over the feedback until a future episode, if that's okay with you guys.
Sure, you're the boss.
Okay. Well, then I'll close up the show here with a question for the listenership here that feeds into Flintlock's survey results here. Has the announcement of the Final Fantasy VII Remake dulled your feelings towards Final Fantasy XV? I'm very interested to hear what people have to say about that. So please reply to the episode post when we get that up, or feel free to email us at lifestreampod@gmail.com and let us know the answer to that question. I'm very interested to hear not only your answer to that question, but an explanation of why you feel the way you do.
Yeah, it's a great question. Sorry.
Yes. Oh, no, that's okay. With that said, like I said, we do want to hear from you, so send your questions and feedback to us at lifestreampod@gmail.com. You can also reply to the episode posts each week on the lifestream.net forums. Please leave us feedback on iTunes as well. We will do our best to read your questions, comments, and feedback on air. And on behalf of Flintlock, Lex, Carly, I'd like to thank you again for listening to the Lifestream podcast. Take care and always protect the crystals.
Bye.
Bye.
Music provided on this podcast is from incompetech.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lifestream podcast. I am Mike Ficklin, also known as Vader SW1 on the forums, and joining me on this mythic quest into all things Final Fantasy are...
We're supposed to say something?
Yeah, sorry. We were doing the opening from the first episode where I was just going to have you guys all introduce yourselves.
Was I
Yeah,
first?
you were first on that list. If you were, don't worry.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Through the magic of editing, this will be
You
perfect
should put that as a blooper at the end.
for sure. It's going there.
Maybe we should just take it from the top.
Okay.
So I'll go first, and I'll say Flintlock. Is that it?
He even forgot.
Yeah,
his
that's
own
fine.
name.
However you want to introduce yourself is fine.
Okay. I mean, my I said this last time, but my preference would be for you to say we are joined by Flintlock, and then I'll say hello there, and then
Yeah,
That
say,
will probably
when
be-
we did the mini-sode.
Carly or
that will
whatever.
probably
If you
be
wanna do
best
that-
because we clearly don't
okay.
seem to be able to work out tomorrow.
No problem. We'll try it that way then. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll try it from the top here again.
Sure thing.
All right.
Sure thing.
All right.
Sure thing.
All right.
Sure thing.
All right.